Dogs. They used to call them man's best friend. They are family members, loving companions. Dogs are amazing. They can also be our worst nightmare. When vicious dogs attack, people get hurt. They are maimed and mauled, scarred forever. What are the laws surrounding vicious dog attacks? When they attack, who is held responsible? What are your rights? What are the rights of dog owners? We've all heard the stories, children attacked, even killed by packs of dogs. It happens all the time, seemingly, and eventually we become numb to the stories. But to the individuals involved, their loved ones, and the people fighting for them, each and every one of those attacks represent one of the most horrific and challenging times in their lives. We're about to share with you a horrifying and true story about a vicious dog attack that could have been fatal. We'll examine the case, the physical and emotional impact it had on one man in particular, as well as the legal battles that followed and how justice was served on this True Claims podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Johnson. I spent a long career as a television news journalist, and in that time, some of the most horrifying and infuriating stories that came across the news desk involved vicious dog attacks. We're going to talk about one specific attack. We're going to bring in Chris Davis of the Davis Law Group, who is the expert in this region on that subject. He wrote a book on that subject. But first, I want to tell you about the specific case that we're going to be talking about. September 13th, 2017, Kevin Backlund, a former state patrol trooper working as a delivery driver for UPS, showed up at a property to make a delivery. While on the property, he was surrounded and attacked by not one or two, but 4 pit bull dogs. The man quickly realized as the dogs were tearing into him that he was in a fight for his very life. He saw someone on the property and called for help. That person did nothing to help and shouted threats instead. The delivery man crawled up onto a flatbed trailer, bleeding profusely, and called 911.
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, I've been attacked by 5 pit bulls. I'm a UPS driver.
Do you need medical aid?
Yes, I'm big out of vein. I'm bleeding profusely. And there's 5 of them. I'm under I can't get to you, but I'm going to need it.
Okay, I'm getting paramedics on the line with us. Hold on, okay?
Okay.
She's being attacked by pit bulls. Where are they now?
Yes. There.
Where are they
now?
Are they locked up, sir?
No, they're all loose. I need deputies here. They're going to have to put them down.
Are you back in your rig?
No, I'm trapped on a trailer. I'm bleeding profusely on my left leg. I got to take.
Okay. Police are gonna get going. They gotta get there before the fire. But I want you to find a cloth, any type of cloth.
I can't get out there. As I said, they surrounded me.
Okay.
I'm in a trailer and I'm trying to get in. I need help.
Yeah,
I'm bleeding badly.
Sir.
When emergency responders finally arrived, a woman at the scene refused to let them enter the property. There was a gated fence. She wouldn't let them in. One fireman, seeing that delivery driver was still under attack from the dogs, crashed his vehicle through the gate and rescued the driver. The attack resulted in 138 stitches for Kevin Backlund and other injuries that will impact him for the rest of his life. He also realizes that he could very well have died that day. To help us understand this claim, we bring in Chris Davis of the Davis Law Group, the founding attorney for the Davis Law Group, 30 years of experience in that world. And I'm struck by this story. It's horrifying, of course, Chris. And I remember doing a story in my television news days, and I needed a dog expert, an expert on these attacks. I came to you and interviewed you about it. You are the expert. You wrote a book about this subject.
Yeah, so I've been handling dog bite and dog attack cases for more than 30 years, and many times they can be the most horrific, gut-wrenching, really catastrophic cases that I've seen. There's just something that is primal when it comes to human beings being attacked by an animal and being maimed by an animal. There's a fear like no other that a human being goes through when that experience happens, for sure.
Kevin Backlund's story is so horrifying. To your point, we can imagine the panic in a situation like this. Tell me some more details about this case, because you had to dive into this thing and learn every detail of what happened.
Yeah. So, and this is one of the more horrific cases involving dogs that I've handled. And Kevin was working as a UPS driver and was simply doing his job, and was delivering a package to a rural property outside of Puyallup. Entered onto the property to deliver the package. And was inside the gate about 20, 30 feet when all of a sudden he is surrounded by 4 growling pit bulls. And they immediately circle him and get in attack mode. And before he can do anything, all four of the dogs jump him, start biting him. He retreats to a nearby trailer, jumps on the trailer, while a few of the dogs are still latched onto his legs and feet. Oh. And he's trying to kick them off, and the dogs are they won't stop. They're vicious. A neighbor gal was outside the gate and was telling him, "You're going to die. You shouldn't have gone into the property," which, of course, added to his terror. He was able to get his cell phone out and call emergency responders. And when they arrived, the gal that was outside the gate would not let the emergency responders inside the gate to rescue Kevin. So
she had access to that gate. She could have opened it.
Absolutely, she could have opened
Amazing.
it. So one of the EMT, the battalion chief EMT, actually drove his personal truck through the gate, through the fence, to rescue Kevin. Kevin had to jump in through the passenger side window, and then he was saved.
Wasn't there I read that there was a recording of the owner of the property who said the dogs were doing their job?
Yeah, the owner of the property gave an interview that day and told the police officers that the dogs were essentially bred to be aggressive. They were bred to protect the lot, and that they were doing their job when they attacked and nearly killed Mr. Backlund. When
does an accident, a bad situation, become criminal behavior?
So the deciding factor between a negligent event and a criminal event is really intent. Was the event intended to cause harm? And so I believe Pierce County investigated whether the dog owners actually bred the animals to intentionally kill people that came onto the property. And I don't think that they were able to prove that, but I know that they brought administrative proceedings against the dog owners, and eventually the dogs were euthanized.
So this situation, I mean, this man fighting for his life, climbs up on a trailer, dogs still attacking him, goes on and on. The emergency people aren't allowed in. How close do you think, in your estimation, this man came to dying, Kevin Backlund? I mean, he's lucky to be alive, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced that had he not been saved within 3 to 5 minutes, he likely would have bled out from his injuries from the dogs.
So he lost a lot of blood that day.
Absolutely.
How common is this? I mean, we hear about it on the news, and it felt like to me in the last few years that there was way more of these situations than there had used to be. What's your take on that?
Well, this is an extreme event. 4 pit bulls that almost killed a man. We don't see that very often, but we see dog bites and dog attacks all the time. There are certain breeds that represent the majority of these incidences. Pit bull dogs, mastiffs, Doberman pinschers, German shepherds, dogs that typically have been bred to be aggressive in one way or another. I've consulted with animal behaviorists who tell me that there are aggressive genes in certain species of dogs, where if they are bred a certain way or trained a certain way, that they can easily become aggressive to the point where they can take down and kill a human being.
Now, you've heard people say, though, there's no bad dogs, they're just bad owners.
Yeah. My response to that is, I really don't care. If a dog is dangerous, I don't care how it became dangerous. The question is, how do we protect people from the dangerous dog? So there are irresponsible dog owners out there, no question. But any dog that is dangerous, we have to take the proper precautions to make sure that it doesn't hurt or kill somebody, in particular children. Children, we see a lot of cases involving children where even minor bites can cause catastrophic injuries and scarring and trauma to children.
In your opinion, Chris, what can we do about the bully breed situation? What can be done? I know in England weren't pit bulls outlawed in England for a long time?
Right. So it's going to take a multifaceted approach. I mean, we need to educate the public, obviously. There are certain jurisdictions that have outlawed dangerous breeds like pit bulls. I think they have been affected to some extent. There's also insurance requirements and harboring requirements. So if your dog is found to be potentially dangerous, you're going to have to carry out a certain amount of insurance on the dog. You're going to have to put the dog in an enclosed pen area that is verified by authorities. All of those measures have helped somewhat, but there's always going to be cases where a dog owner and the aggressive dog are going to slip through the cracks, and somebody's eventually going to get hurt, unfortunately.
Kevin Backlund, in that situation where the emergency driver broke through that gate to get to him, dove into the rig head first, still being attacked by this pack of pit bulls. He was injured when that happened, right?
Yeah, he injured his shoulder and his legs. He could no longer work after this incident. He was an avid basketball player and a golfer. I don't think he can do those activities anymore. He walks with a limp. He had major scar revisions, surgeries. I believe they had to cut some of his tendons, shorten some of his tendons, and regraft in other areas of his legs. Pretty serious injuries that will affect him for the rest of his life.
So you're representing Mr. Backlund. Tell me about the process of trying to determine how do you put a dollar figure on what he went through?
Yeah. Well, the first question is, did the dog owners have insurance? And they did in this case. Surprisingly, though, the dog owner's insurance company denied responsibility. They tried to argue that Kevin came onto the property illegally, and therefore he was a trespasser. And the law is pretty clear. When you order a package to your home, the person that delivers the package, by definition, is not a trespasser. But the insurance company insisted on maintaining that defense. The dog owners also argued that the package that they ordered the company, the package from, failed to put warnings on the package label. They claimed that they warned the company that the package was being delivered to a home with dangerous dogs. So when they made that allegation, we had to bring in the package company into the lawsuit. And so when it came to valuing the damages, there wasn't enough insurance to fully compensate Kevin for everything that he went through and will go through for the rest of his life, unfortunately. And we see that in many cases, unfortunately. So I placed his damages easily in the $5 to $10 million range, if not more, because of what he went through. But he didn't recover a fraction of that amount.
You would have rather he got a lot more than he did.
Absolutely. I think he deserved it, given what he went through.
And then how about the dog owners? What happened with them? How about the dogs themselves?
Yeah, so the dog owners, I think Pierce County investigated whether there were criminal charges to be brought, and they decided not to bring criminal charges. The dogs were eventually confiscated and destroyed. They were put down. And so the dog owner's homeowner's insurance company paid out the insurance policy limits to settle the claim, and that's pretty much it.
And I saw that it looks like Kevin Backlund ended up with $875,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what are the takeaways here? I mean, we all have come across situations, I think most of us have anywhere, where you have a neighbor down the street that has a dog that you're afraid of to have your kids near them. Or, there's someone, that you don't like to go to their house because of the dog. What do we need to know as citizens here in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest about the laws and about dogs?
Well, first of all, dog owners, if they know that there are dangerous tendencies that their dogs exhibit, they are responsible for protecting others from their dogs. So that may include putting up dog warning signs on the property. That may also include in fencing the property to make sure nobody comes onto the property. if you're somebody that is entering onto somebody else's property that you're unaware of, you always need to look for dog warning signs, because if there's a dog warning sign and then you enter onto the property and you're attacked by the dog, then you are at fault for going onto that property and putting yourself in a position of being attacked. So always look for warning signs. And of course, if you know that there are dogs on a property that exhibit dangerous tendencies, loud barking, aggressive behavior, you need to stay away. You cannot go onto that property.
You know, you've done an amazing thing with the Davis Law Group. I think it's to be applauded, and it's important, and I'd like you to talk about it if you would. You've written a series of books, and they're not just for Davis Law Group clients, they're for all of us to learn about how the laws work. And one of your books was about this very subject.
Right. In general, so I've written about 14 or 15 books because I learned long ago that the best client is an educated client. And I felt that one of my missions as an attorney was to educate people so that they could protect themselves from getting into a position where they might have a claim, an injury claim, or if they find themselves in that unfortunate position, then to learn about their rights so that they can protect themselves. We've given away probably over 100,000 copies of my books over the last 15 years. Most of those people that receive those books do not become clients. They keep the books. We get a lot of letters and cards every year thanking us for the books. But my mission originally was to educate people and make sure that they protect themselves in the unfortunate situation if a claim arises. And so I think they've done a good job in that.
And for the record, Chris, you are a dog lover yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've owned probably 15 to 20 dogs over my lifetime, and I love dogs, as a lot of people do. However, I don't approve of or condone, owners who are irresponsible or who breed vicious animals or who have a potentially dangerous dog but don't take the proper precautions to protect, other people from their dog. That really irritates me. But when it comes to dogs, they're one of the best animals on earth, I think.
Yeah. Hey, fascinating information and important information, I think, because this is a situation that we all could stumble across. Sometimes, stories come across the news desk and you're thinking, well, what are the chances of that ever happening again? Dog attacks and angry dogs and vicious dogs, it could very well happen to any of us in our lifetimes.
I think it happens more often than not. I mean, we see some of the very, very worst and tragic cases, but there's a lot of other minor cases, minor bites that can turn into something serious, infection and so forth. So, the best protection is simply being aware, and I hope my book has helped in that regard.
Thank you very much. Excellent information. That's going to wrap up this version of the True Claims podcast, or this episode rather, and we'll be back again. We'll do it some more, taking apart some of these cases and these stories and helping you understand how the law works and how it all breaks down. I hope you learned something. I know I did. I'm Eric Johnson. We'll see you next time. Eric Johnson here. I spent the last 30 years reporting on what you need to know, and now I've got something I think everyone could use. The Washington Accident Book Series offers a free legal guidebook on everything from car crashes to dog bites, so that you know what to expect after any kind of accident. Know your rights and how to avoid common mistakes after an accident by getting your free copy at WashingtonAccidentBooks.com.